Here she is, only golightly our protagonist. These words are the best introduction to this brief novel. Paul Varjak, her neighbor and unsuccessful writer, overwhelmed by a rush of memories, turns himself into the internal narrator. He starts to tell the story by a flashback recalled by a picture he saw on a magazine, with an African statue on it, that looked like Ollie, his dear friend he has not met for a long time. Came out from the brilliant mind of Truman Capote, this novel reflects the high society people he loved and knew so well. Ollie Golightly, an outstanding main character, breaks almost every rules and conventions of the Puritan and respectable American society of the 50s, just as Capote does in his own life, being a great publicist, bravely showing his homosexuality and energy like nobody else, and becoming the most beloved and cherished celebrity of the jet set. Capote still puts himself into the protagonist, describing Ollie as a controversial girl from humble origins. In fact, the little Truman too, born in 1924, comes from a small farming town in Alabama. His parents didn't want a child and abandoned him at the age of 4, and he was raised by his mother's relatives in the depth of Great Depression, and only arriving in New York, he earned his fame. Also Ollie, once arrived in the Big Apple, tries to change her social condition at all costs, going through prostitution and selfishness, from being an abandoned little girl, wife of a country vet, up to a beautiful high society young woman, actually without a true job, always trying to catch a wealthy man to marry. She seems to be quite unaware of the results coming from her unsuitable behavior. Even her empty and dirty flat reflects precisely her chaotic personality. This way, the reader feels himself easily confused between innocence and guilt. Despite Paul, her faithful and patient friend, always give her support, she needs to run away from all sort of belonging, which she is scared of. In this sense, her nameless cat embodies her double. "I'm like a wild animal, impossible to tame," she says to Dr. Golightly, her husband, who wanted to bring her back to Texas. Capote doesn't preserve her even from a veiled bisexuality and lets her face other experiences, like unexpected pregnancy and a dangerous friendship with a criminal she meets weekly in jail to deliver him secret information that gets her in trouble. Lastly, she will be also abandoned by the old rich man who wanted to marry her. Nevertheless, according to her personality, she doesn't give up chasing her dream. Whereas Capote, her creator, some years later, finding hard to manage his great success, started drinking heavily and taking different drugs, which destroyed his life forever. Ollie Golightly is an unpleasant character who doesn't evolve at all, just as it would probably happen to a real person in real life. The only regret she feels is having abandoned the cat, Anyway, she runs away from New York forever, leaving the reader astonished for an ending he probably didn't expect. For a long while after the book came out, it became a sort of challenge to guess which of these stylish women friends Capote had modeled Ollie after. 3 years later, the book was made into a movie, directed by Blake Edwards, starring Audrey Hepburn as Ollie Golightly and George Peppard as Paul Varjak. The film is simply a love story with an happy ending to please the audience of the time. But for doing that, lots of things had been changed and omitted, provoking Capote's disagreement. He preferred Marilyn Monroe in the leading role, who, in his opinion, would be perfectly acted the carefree and beautiful party girl. Audrey Hepburn was a crucial choice both for her personal career and for the success of the movie that became world famous. Very well suited for this role, Audrey Hepburn, so elegant and sophisticated, gave birth to a such fresh, sexy, engaging, and quite simple character never seen before. With her beauty and charm, Ollie had all her sins forgiven, and, helped by a happy ending where she kisses Paul under the rain with her cat in her arms, she becomes an iconic figure for generations of young women forever and ever. This book, as many other unforgettable Truman Capote's novels, is the result of an incredible combination of opposites that generated such unique stories coming from the extraordinary mind of a genius, a little man who identifies the writer's style as the writer himself. Impossible to define in a conscious way as much as the color of one's own eyes.